Today we're going to talk about one of the most critical moments of World War II, the Battle of Midway. But we're not just going to treat this as some old historical event. Nope. We're going to dissect it as a masterclass in strategy, in taking risks, and, well, in setting the perfect ambush. So let's just jump right in with a huge question. How do you win a war when you are losing? I mean, when you're outgunned, you're outmaneuvered, and you are completely on your back foot. That was the exact spot the United States was in, and the answer to that question is what makes this story so incredible. To really get why this victory was so huge, you have to understand just how desperate things were. So let's set the scene. It's 1942, and America is on the defensive, staring down a pretty grim reality in the Pacific. I mean, after the shock of Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Navy was just reeling. The Japanese military seemed unstoppable, like this giant tidal wave sweeping across the ocean. America was playing defense, not planning big attacks, but just desperately trying to hold on. Every single decision was a matter of survival. But even when things look totally bleak, sometimes all it takes is one little spark. And for the U.S., that spark came from the shadows, from a world of secrets and codes. And this is where we get to the codebreaker's gamble, the moment the hunted decided to become the hunter. See, the U.S. had this secret weapon, but it wasn't one you could see on a battlefield. Yeah, they were outmatched in ships and planes, but they had this crucial edge, an absolutely brilliant team of codebreakers. These people had somehow managed to crack Japan's naval codes, giving the U.S. a secret window into their enemies' plans. And they turned this intelligence into a weapon with a pretty simple but totally brilliant three-step playbook. First, they intercepted the secret communications. Step 2, they figured out what those messages meant and predicted the enemy's next big move, an attack on the tiny island of Midway. And then, the final move, use that priceless info to set a deadly trap. So the trap was set. The massive Japanese fleet, totally blinded by their own confidence, was sailing right into the jaws of an ambush. And this, right here, is where we get to the climax of the story, the few crucial minutes that would literally change the entire course of the war. Just as U.S. intelligence predicted, Japanese forces start their attack on Midway Island. And at that exact moment, when they're fully committed, the hidden American carriers make their move. The ambush is sprung. And here's the part that is just mind-blowing. The turning point of the entire Pacific War, the moment that decided the fate of empires, didn't take days or even hours. It all came down to just 5 minutes. That's it. 5. In that unbelievably short period, American dive bombers came screaming down from the clouds. They caught the Japanese carriers at their most vulnerable moment, decks just packed with planes, bombs, and fuel. It was chaos. They scored devastating hits. Multiple carriers were turned into these blazing infernos. In less time than it takes to get through this explainer, the momentum of the entire war had flipped. So when the smoke finally cleared, the sheer scale of the American victory was, well, it was stunning. But what did it all mean? That brings us to our final section, a calculated, decisive risk, and really digging into why Midway changed absolutely everything. This quote from our source material just nails it. Midway wasn't just some desperate last-ditch fight for survival. No, it was way smarter than that. It was a defensive gamble that used a weaker position to set a trap that would deliver an overwhelmingly powerful blow. And this really defines the central idea of the whole operation, the calculated risk. This wasn't a blind gamble. I mean, the danger was immense. Failure would have meant the total destruction of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. But because of those codebreakers, the risk was understood, and the potential reward, crippling the Japanese Navy in one shot, was definitely worth it. And the results of this gamble were just revolutionary. I mean, look at this. Before Midway, the U.S. was on defense, totally outmatched. After Midway, the tables were completely turned. The U.S. took control, went on the offensive, and for the very first time, a clear path to winning the war started to emerge. This was the turning point. So, what's the ultimate lesson from all this? It's a timeless principle of strategy, really. Superior intelligence can overcome superior force. Japan had more ships, more experienced pilots, but the United States had the ultimate weapon, information. And they used it to create an opportunity that shattered every advantage their opponent had. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. The story of Midway is about a massive, world-changing risk that paid off in a spectacular way. And it makes you wonder, outside of war, in business, technology, or maybe even in your own life. What's the biggest calculated risk you've ever seen pay off?